Now, we can see the question about National Prohibition Act. Now, what are the things expected from you when you are doing summarized written text? Of course, you are expected to read and then understand. Whatever you understood, you are supposed to paraphrase that in your own words and then later on combine it together to create one sentence long answer. This answer cannot be more than 75 words and cannot be less than 5 words. I think the minimum limit is not a problem for anyone, but exceeding the limit can be a real risk for some people if they are not careful. Another thing is sometimes in the instructions they may not mention how many words you are supposed to write. This is something you have to determine yourself and never exceed 75 words even if it is not specified in an instruction. Okay, that's about the technical aspects. Talking about how it is to be done in the exam. Let's look at this question first. Remember, every time you get a question in the test, it cannot be more than 300 words long. In our practices, we often use the passages which are longer than that, but fortunately for our exam, we don't need to bother about that, and we can just practice the questions which are within the limit of 300 words. Most of these questions will be divided into paragraphs, as you can see here. In this particular case, we have 3 paragraphs here. Number of paragraph is an indirect way of your examiners to tell you that there are 3 important ideas, because the only reason we change the paragraph is we have a new idea to mention, we have a new idea to discuss. And that's why you can roughly assume that if there are 3 paragraphs, there are 3 ideas, 4 paragraphs, 4 ideas, 2 paragraphs, 2 ideas. In your exam, mostly the whole text will be divided into 2 or 3 paragraphs, which simply means there will be 2 or 3 important ideas. Another thing to think about is how the ideas are organized in the paragraph. Now, if you look into this paragraph, for example, you can see that it is starting with something mentioned here at the beginning, followed by some explanations later on. Or in other words, in most of the cases, the first sentence of the paragraph indicates the main idea. In some cases, you may also need to read the second sentence, but most of the times, first or second sentence will contain the main idea. So your job first would be to look at the first and second sentence and then paraphrase the information given there. So in my case, what I'm going to do here is I'll just write down my answer below the paragraph. In your case, you will try to do it in the text box. So let's read what is given here. In 1920, the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution was enacted, creating yet another serious setback to the American wine industry. Now, this first sentence tells me that this paragraph is going to talk about the setback to the American wine industry because of a law. Now, if I read on, I find that the National Prohibition Act, also known as the Volstead Act, prohibited the manufacture, sale, transportation, importation, exportation, delivery, or possession of intoxicating liquor for beverage purposes and nearly destroyed what had become a thriving national industry. In 1920, there were more than 700 wineries in California. By the end of Prohibition, there were 160. So I can simply write a summary for this particular paragraph in this manner, focusing mainly on the first sentence. Okay, so what will it be? You can mention the name of the act, or you can simply say an act. In my case, I'm planning to mention the name of the act, the National Prohibition Act, introduced almost a century ago, prohibited what did it prohibit? Many things: manufacture, sell, importation. So you cannot write all of them. You can if you want to, but it's not necessary. Prohibited the different aspects of wine production, promotion, and distribution, which almost destroyed the whole industry. So that would be the summary of the first paragraph, and that's fine. Now we go to the next paragraph, we repeat the same thing. If prohibition had lasted only 4 or 5 years, its impact on the wine industry might have been negligible, but it continued for 13 years, during which time grapes were underground, literally and figuratively, becoming an important commodity in the criminal economy. One loophole in the Volstead Act allowed for the manufacture and sale of sacramental wines. Medicinal wines were sold by pharmacists with a doctor's prescription, and medicinal wine tonics sold without prescription. Perhaps more importantly, prohibition allowed anyone to produce up to 200 gallons of fruit juice or cider each year. The fruit juice, which was sometimes made into concentrate, was idle for making wine. some of this ill found its way to bootleggers throughout America who did just that. That is the end of that paragraph. So what does this paragraph tells you? The ban continued for almost 13 years. And what did it lead to? Looking at that, we can say that leading to the illegal production of wine, exploiting the loophole in the legal provision. So that would be the idea of the second paragraph. The ban continued for a long time, and then there was a loophole because people could actually manufacture the equivalent of wine or something similar to wine if it was for some other purposes rather than intoxicating people. And that's why the production was not halted or stopped, but it led to the underground activities. But not for long, because the government stepped in and banned the sale of grape juice, preventing illegal wine production. Vineyards stopped being planted in the American wine industry ground to a halt. Now, in this stage, what they're saying is, later on, the government intervention almost brought the illegal production and thereby the whole industry to halt. Now, I'm just using the language they have used in this passage, and you can do that. There is no problem with that. Remember, I told you in the class as well, there is no separate score for spelling. That means you are allowed to do this. Now, we have got three different ideas from three different paragraphs. And mostly I was focusing on the first part of the paragraph, first or second sentence. But in some cases, I was trying to combine the information from the other places as well, if I felt comfortable with that. In your case, if you feel like, no, I think that will be too complicated for me, or most of the times I don't even understand the full paragraph, then you can focus more on the first sentence of each paragraph. Remember, even by doing that, you'll be able to get the main idea in most of the cases, because in most of the cases, the main idea is in the first sentence or the second sentence. Now, basically what you do is, by the time you'll have completed this in the exam, most likely in your text box, you'll have three sentences adjacent to each other in this manner. Now, we have got all the main ideas along with some of the supporting ideas from the paragraph. What we are supposed to do after this is we need to synthesize the information. Remember, we have gone through two steps so far. We read and try to understand, and second step, we try to compress the information by paraphrasing it. Now we are trying to synthesize. That means we are trying to connect the ideas. During this process, many times you might feel like the words are being repeated, you are not happy with your word choice, or you feel like you do not exactly you are not exactly getting the idea, or you may feel like no, this is not what the paragraph is saying, but I think there is nothing else I can write. That's fine. At this stage, don't worry about the other things. Just focus on what you're supposed to write from each paragraph. And even if it means repeating your ideas, your sentences, your expressions, don't worry about that. Just simply write three sentences. Because if you try to do too many things at the same time, it only distracts you and you get stuck at one place. And that's not something we want. Now, we are supposed to connect these ideas together after this stage, and what we are going to do here is we'll look at the first and second sentence, and we'll try to these two sentences first. The National Prohibition Act, introduced almost a century ago, prohibited the different aspects of wine production and distribution, which almost destroyed the whole industry. The ban continued for almost 13 years, leading to the illegal production of wine, exploiting the loophole in the legal provision. Now, I think I can simply connect these two ideas by using the relative clause, which and I'm putting which continued for almost 13 years. So you can see that I'm putting this inside two commas. Now, if you put any expression inside two commas, that's like isolating this part with the rest of the sentences. It will not have any impact on the grammar of the sentence, but can inform the readers about this extra piece of information, which almost, now ignore whatever you have written inside two commas, which almost which almost okay, let's not write almost, sorry about that, which now I think I would use the word encouraged the illegal production of wine, exploiting the loophole in legal provision. The reason I chose the word encouraged rather than led to is because encouraged feels like it connects the previous idea with the second by giving a sense that because people were not allowed to produce the wine in the legal way, they resorted to the illegal way. So that's like the ban almost encouraged people to use the wrong way of production of the wine. That's why this is, I think, a better expression here. Encourage the illegal production of wine, exploiting the loophole in the legal provision. Now, see, this continued until, right? So now the next appropriate word here would be until. Until the government intervention almost brought the illegal production. Sorry, not almost. Until the government intervention. Now this time almost would not make sense here. Brought the illegal production and thereby the whole industry to a halt. So now it looks better. The National Prohibition Act, introduced almost a century ago, prohibited the different aspects of wine production and distribution, which almost destroyed the whole industry, which continued for almost 3 years, encouraged the illegal production of wine, exploiting the loophole in the legal provision until the government intervention brought the illegal production, and thereby the whole industry to a halt. Now, everything seems fine, but just at this place I felt like I was not smooth in my expressions, or there was a kind of break in my continuity of idea. That's why I will spend some time looking at this part. The National Prohibition Act, introduced almost a century ago, prohibited the different aspects of wine production and distribution, which almost destroyed the whole industry. Now, the reason I was feeling like I'm not going smoothly and naturally here, now I have identified, is because I have used the word which twice. So as I told you, when you're writing at the beginning, you don't worry about this kind of things. These are the things you look into when you have finished writing. Now I feel like I should make some changes here so that I don't repeat the word which twice, and this becomes more natural and smooth. And so now I need to think what can be done here, which almost destroyed the whole industry and continued for almost 3 years. So whenever you are connecting the ideas and you feel like I'm not getting any linking words, but I see the continuity, remember continuity means continuous tense, as I told you earlier. So that's why you can write encouraging. Yes, encouraging the illegal production of wine, exploiting the loophole. So you can see here, if you feel like there is something going on and the subject is always the same, I mean one cause is leading to different effects. There is one cause leading to different effects. There is one trick you can use to connect the ideas together without using too many linking words. For example, that idea is encouraging, look here, exploiting, look here, and until government brought the illegal production and thereby. So you can see that here, the ban was encouraging the illegal production of wine. Illegal production of wine led to the exploitation of the loophole. So this led to this led to this, which means for the cause and effect part, we can simply change the verb into ing form and then we'll be able to connect them. Let me give you another example here just to explain this part. He worked hard. He passed the exam. He became successful. Now, if you look at these three sentences, you can see that the sentences are related to each other and one is leading to the other. So, as I told you earlier, you can simply connect these ideas in this manner. He worked hard, passing the exam, becoming successful. Now, in this case, while doing this, if you feel like, yeah, I have done it, but I feel like it's not properly connected, then you can just do one thing. Before one of the verb in ing form, add the other one. Then it becomes even better. So you can see he worked hard passing the exam, thereby becoming successful. Now, using this trick, you can connect the ideas together, but make sure that for this kind of structures to work, you have to make sure that all these sentences have the same subject, or in other words, one cause is leading to effects which are leading to other effects. Okay, then only this structure will work. Otherwise, you might make some mistakes. Anyway, let me recapitulate what we discussed today. We talked about tense, we talked about summarized written text. About the tense, I told you that there are 3 different time periods indicating 3 different tenses: past, present, and future. For each time period, we have 4 different actions: simple actions, continuous action, perfect actions, and perfect and continuous action. Simple actions means we need verb 1, verb 2, or verb 5 depending on which tense we are using. For the continuous, we always use ing form. For the perfect, we use verb 3 form. For the perfect continuous, we use has, have, had, been, and verb 3 form. Revise the structures given in the table. Then after that, only cover the verb part and try to think it, or try to recall which form of the verb would be required there. That will help you to do fill in the blank questions in reading. And not only that, perhaps your overall understanding of the tense and therefore performance related to tense will also improve. Also make sure that, which I did not discuss in this session today, also make sure that you know about different voices: active voice and passive voice. All these 12 forms of sentences here have their passive forms as well, and so make sure you know them. If you have a good understanding of the tense and the voice, it will help you to get better score in your test, especially in the reading part, fill in the blanks, which we all know is very important for our test. After that, we talked about the summarized written text, which is considered difficult by many people. First thing, all questions we have for practice on our student portal are from the past test and have been repeatedly asked in the test. Therefore, make sure that you have gone through them and you understand them, because if they ask something outside this list, definitely there is nothing much we can do other than relying on the concepts we learn and using our skills. But if the questions are asked from this list and you feel like I didn't study it or I didn't prepare myself, you will only feel stupid and you will only regret this later. So make sure you go through all these questions. Then, while you are practicing, try to focus on one paragraph at a time and look at the first or second sentence of each paragraph, basically, because these are the sentences which will carry the topic of the paragraph and will give you the main idea. The rest of the sentences usually have the supporting information that you can use later on when you are paraphrasing the paragraph into one sentence. So for each paragraph, write one sentence, and as I did, combine them one by one. So if you have 3 sentences, first you will combine first and second sentence and you will have one sentence, and that one sentence will combine with the third sentence. If you have 4 sentences, then you can combine first and second, third and fourth. You will have 2 sentences, then you will combine them. This way the process will get easier because you are not trying to do too many things at the same time. Now, even after this, if you are feeling confused or you want more help, of course you can ask me in the class, outside the class, or you can send more requests for the more practice exercises, and we can do more live sessions. And if you are more interested in learning vocabularies or grammar or any other aspects which might help you in your preparation, just let me know and I'll do them in the class or in the live sessions. Mostly if there is anything I can't cover in the class, I'll try to do it in the live session. So that's it for today. Thank you for being with me and have a lovely weekend.